Hello and welcome to session 3 of our Legacy Life Among the Ruins game. Last time, we've got like the last little bit of session 0 at the start. And then we rolled into having the group assembled together. By the group, I mean the PCs from the different families working together on a central problem. And as a result of that, some things were solved and some things were not solved. And we're going to deal with the fallout from that today. If you're watching this, this is part of the Gauntlet Hangouts. The Gauntlet is an online gaming group. You can find out more about that at gauntlet-rpg.com. So let me talk about what I want to definitely get to today. I want to check in with everybody about their roles, because I know some people have essentially accomplished kind of their roles and they may wish to swap them. That being one of the ways to get advances in this game. I definitely want to get some family moves, go around and see what everybody's family are doing. I also wanted, when we do the families, I want to check in and kind of get a perspective on how you see the surpluses and needs that your families have, what that looks like. And maybe we'll get some NPC settled factions on the table today. I did put a little marker on the map for our crater heretics, so they are marked there as it were. Let's last time the 4 of you went down into the crater. You were looking for this book, the Magma Opus, which could be used to help prevent the volcanic eruption, and others went along for other purposes. And I think that definitely Dew on Meadows walked away with what they wanted. I think that Radical ended up in a better position, got some tech, got some a treaty there. Soft was curious about this and certainly got those that fragment of his people to be welcomed by them. So that's an accomplishment. Quartz is still thinking about how to reconcile this, I think, with his procedures. So that's where I want to start. Is let's check in. Let's start with Radical. What is your role, Radical, right now?
So currently my role was an agent, which is mark when a group's relying on you to find a crucial component, say who else is looking for it.
Do you think this is applicable, or do you think that's still staying out there for your character?
Yeah, I think that we could mark that as solved. I'd have to
Okay.
kind of look at seeing what the next thing was. I was thinking maybe going for the leader.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you decide what role you want to mark, you'll mark that, and you'll be able to either take a new move from your character playbook, or you can add +1 to one of your stats.
Cool.
So real simple advance there.
Yeah. I did have one question.
Absolutely.
Should I mark one treaty on the Crater Heretics? Is that, since mine is like when you spend one time and effort showing another group how to their technology or use their technology better?
Absolutely. I think that is applicable.
Yeah.
I often forget about those alliance moves and how they generate treaty. That's a really good catch. Leandro, what is your role right now? It's outsider, right?
Yeah, it's it's outsider at the moment. I got a principle: those who break it this age risk ruin. That principle is honesty, but everyone's been breathtakingly honest. Some folks have been too honest, for instance. So I think that's still fine. I don't think I'm angling to move to any role. Just play to find out at the moment.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think we necessarily hit on those things. That's one of those role moves that has a little bit of a more abstract approach to it, so it's a little bit harder in some ways to manage. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that today. What about Quartz? Quartz, what is your role?
Currently, I'm Rebel. mark when your people cut ties to a family or faction, tell us of the disaster that hits this family or faction, leave at once to provide them much needed aid. I don't know if I provided the Riverfolk with much needed aid, but that certainly was the intention.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know whether you were going to zoom out, because I imagined zooming out and using some family moves to think about the heretics, to process the heretics.
That seems right. Yeah, we'll zoom out to the family level in a bit.
But what I think I'm aiming at is that then Quartz is going to have some kind of disagreement with his elders and become a rebel, I think is his next logical step.
Okay, absolutely. That seems reasonable. And then that brings us to Duan Meadows. You were an agent.
Yep.
And I think we definitely played out your role thing there.
We did indeed. Yeah. The sorry. The historian has very concrete ones. You have to basically, it sets you up with a premise, and you have to go out and seek the lore that you have discovered and bring it back. And once you brought it back, so you do complete that role. So yeah, mine is absolutely mine. That one is done. I'm the one I'm also thinking is most likely at the moment is probably going into leader. But I might again, as with Alan,
Sure.
I might see what comes up in the when we're doing family moves, and see if there seems to be a more pressing thing to work on.
No, yeah, I think playing into what pops up there is a good plan. So let's come back up to the family. We take up sometime after this has gone on. We're going to look at what the effects are. So let us start with the Seeds of Sunset. They've made this agreement. They've gotten some information out of this. What are your family's needs and surpluses right now?
All right. So needs or surpluses are defenses and energy, and our needs are leadership, progress, and morale.
That's a lot of social. What is going on with your family that progress being tech and morale and leadership? What does that look like on the ground amongst your family?
Yeah, well, I think we've been kind of nomads, moving from place to place, doing all this research in hope of improving the lives of people and like larger societies. And I think the reason the morale is low is like we're making discoveries, we're getting inroads onto the tech and stuff, but we're having difficulties then bringing that back and applying it and actually making useful things that provide food and shelter and whatever. So I think our next step is to kind of take the magic and the tech that we've learned how to use and work with another faction to kind of create a more permanent, longer term settlement.
Okay. So what do you think that is gonna look like? Who would you go to talk to about that?
Well,
PC factions? Do you have Treaty on or an NPC faction?
I was thinking of working with the Riverfolk on that.
Okay.
I didn't know where to kind of locate it if we were. I was kind of thinking of waiting to see what happens with this volcano and if maybe we stabilize that, like start building a settlement near that kind of that area to keep an eye on it, but also, be there in case of future disaster.
Okay.
I don't know.
So that makes sense. So that's going to be probably calling in a debt is probably going to be whether it's going to lean into for that. What about any of the threat that we had on the table that you established? I don't know if it is lumbering up in this age yet, but I believe it was it the Warren?
Yeah, the Warren has those creatures that are coming out of there and multiplying rapidly and spreading around, and they're aggressive.
What is the most recent report or rumor that your family has heard about what's going on with the Warren?
I think it's actually a lack of a report. I think
Okay.
we sent a group down there to start setting up, studying them and bringing back useful information. And I think they have not reported back.
Okay. That that seems reasonable. Is there anything you want to hit family move wise, or do you want me to kind of move around and come back? Either your personal move or a family move that you have.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of once we get to the settlement thing, I have the ward that shields a wide area from harm, and now I have the energy to implement that. So
Okay.
once we figure out where that settlement's going to be, then maybe that ward can block these creatures from coming up or something. I don't know where we locate it, but
Well, let's actually move then to the Riverfolk to see what's going on with them, and then we can see how that connects up with what you're doing. It makes logical sense to do that. So, David, you've got this book, and it will be useful for figuring out how to solve the problem of the volcano. So what does that look like, do you think?
Yeah, so actually, I had some very similar ideas about this to Rai. So yeah, I was thinking that we might be able to possibly find a way to sort of shape the magma flows coming out of this volcano to kind of create some like reclaimed land or something, some islands around the area. Or something along those lines, some way of kind of channeling the force of the volcano to something useful rather than destructive.
And do you think the book kind of provides you the key to do that? What is that going to require, do you think, to make that work? What kind of surplus is it going to require that you connect to it?
That's a good question. I think maybe something like just thinking of the kind of the generic one, something maybe like engineering is probably the right sort of area, or possibly even something like more what's the word I'm looking for? Arcane. But yeah, that's something like that. Definitely, I think something we don't currently have because
Okay.
our current services are all fairly prosaic.
So let's say, for purposes of this, for fixing this problem with the volcano, or at least redirecting it, changing it, you will have to find some kind of surplus along those, and obtain that for your family, and as long as you have that surplus, that will keep this contained. Does that seem like a reasonable way to handle that?
Yeah, that sounds fair.
So then when the seeds come to you to ask about this, what does that interaction look between your two families?
Yeah, I think the Riverfolk will be fairly open to their the initial meeting. They are another nomadic family like us. We're also the Riverfolk's primary modus operandi is as traders and stuff, so they tend to be fairly open and welcoming to sort of envoys and things like that. So I think it'll be quite friendly, and I think that they're definitely when we have that conversation, when we learn what their sort of interests and stuff, and I think that's definitely something where the Riverfolk are probably happy to work together with the seeds on establishing some sort of settlement, observation post, whatever, in around the volcano.
So arrive for the seeds. Do you think that's you spending treaty to get them to back you up? Does that seem like the right way to read that?
yeah, I mean, I think our goal here is to like create this settlement and be able to point to it as like a new beacon of civilization. I was kind of aiming maybe for the great works or whatever they're called.
The
the capital
projects.
Yeah. So there's so I was going to start trying to working towards those surpluses. So yeah, I think that maybe this is us kind of creating some sort of agreement around that. And I'm happy to spend treaty there. I think I have, let's see. Yeah, I have 2 on them. So I'm happy to spend treaty if that's what you think.
So let's have you mark on the map where you're starting this capital project.
Yeah. David, where do you think is a good spot for this, for the Riverfolk? Where should it be on like a tributary, or should it be right up kind of south of the Kettle?
So yeah, I was planning on, or at least considering doing it, like possibly actually on reclaimed land by the Kettle itself. But it would probably also make sense to have something on the shore by the Kettle as well, just for because that bit of the project is probably going to take some time, whereas an initial encampment we can get set up quickly. So yeah, I think maybe starting it out on the shore but close to the Kettle would be.
All right, now which Google art shape do we use for settlement?
The biggest question.
The biggest question here.
And so just to remind everybody, so projects are wonders that are built. They require a very particular set of surpluses that are spent to bring the project to fruition. Those resources can be essentially marked as committed to it. They can be held until you can get them together. In the case of the capital, it's barter goods, prestige, progress, trade, and defenses are all of the things that are necessary to bring that to bear.
And then can we do that as like a joint project, Will, or does one family have to have all of those surpluses?
So what other families can do is they can commit surpluses to the project.
Okay.
There is essentially an owner of that project, but when a project is completed, many resources change hands. Essentially, another person would transfer those resources to you. And if they do that, then they can benefit from the fortunes that are granted by that.
Great.
So here's what it is so once we get each wonder has 5 requirements. When we mark off a requirement, either erase the intended surplus or perform the intended action. And other people can transfer surpluses to you to commit to that. When you mark off all requirements, the wonder is complete, and everyone else rolls 2d6. They get a +1 if they have treaty with you. They get a +1 if they a -1 if they don't have treaty. They get +1 if they have a surplus that matches the wonder's requirements. A -1 if they don't, and then if they've erased a surplus matching one of the wonder's requirements, if essentially they've committed, they get a +1 for that. And they get to potentially get a fortune from the list of benefits for the capital. So you're getting that set up. Tell me what that looks like. I mean, what do we see on screen that we know that your family is coming there, that we know that you and the Riverfolk are working together towards something big?
Sure. Well, I think that usually I'd said before that we host like an annual gathering. And I think usually there's like a few of these spread around, and like whoever's over in the North Quadrant meets over in the North Quadrant. But this time we've brought like almost everyone together, except for a few people who are stationed out there on ongoing research tasks that can't be kind of left to their own. And I think we've brought a fairly good sized amount of tech, and we're starting kind of a construction project with this this defensive kind of shield wall that we're going to build. And we're starting to erect turrets, and some of them are on the land, kind of in a semicircle on the land partway, but then a bunch of them are out on these volcanic islands that the Riverfolk are helping to create.
Okay. And that makes sense, since defenses is one of the things that you definitely do have a strength in. Then that brings us to what is it that your family is doing? Are you making preparations to make those changes, or are you moving forward on that? How do you want to do this? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I think that we are probably looking sorry, I've completely blanked on what I was going to say. Yeah, I think we're probably helping support things. I think actually we are. I think that we can help out with the trade aspect of the project right now, and I think that's probably represented by just literally the fact that we are helping ship a lot of the materials that are required for the construction here across the homeland
Sure.
through the river system. And I think
so what are you doing to get the know-how, the pieces that you need to be able to do this tamping down of the volcanic threat?
Oh yeah, so that I think what we'll probably see like a scene of I think we'll see a scene of Dew studying the this great metal tome that he has from the heretics, and I think there'll be several other sort of scholars and people around who who know sort of the sort of shipbuilders, other engineers, various sort of cross section of people who will be kind of reading through this this tome and the sort of clues within it. And
so uncover lore is what we're aiming for?
That's it. Yep, I do.
How much data do you want to spend?
I only currently have one data, so that will have to do for this one.
All right.
Oops, and
technically you can do it without spending data, but of course it's very risky at that point.
That's a 9 in total.
That's good. So what is your question?
So my question is, and the right one, yes, I am. Uncover lore. Here we go. Sure. Oh, that's actually a good. I think that it is going to be. Because I could just go for how to get the surplus, or I could ask how to make best use of the kettle in general. I think I'm going to ask how can we best make use of the kettle, as part of this project.
It is certainly generating heat, thermal energy. The magma opus details ways in which to harness that, and if you could conceivably connect that up with the city that's coming to do that, but it will definitely, you will need to find engineers. You'll need to find people with the engineering know-how to complement what you're doing. If you can do that and get that, it will dampen down the threat, And I will say that if you can do that, it will take care of one of the requirements for the city.
Brilliant.
Does that seem
And
reasonable?
that sounds brilliant. Yeah. The other thing is because that moves used data, I get to mark a point of wisdom for due, and
right.
I get to reveal a detail of a new tome that is in some way linked to this. So I think the one that I'm going to go for a tome that is called I don't know, in fact, maybe I don't think I know the name of it yet, but I think I have heard tell of a sort of the works of kind of a legendary engineer, which would obviously be useful to us. So yeah, that's that's something I'm going to investigate in more detail as well at some point.
All right. We'll come back to this and how that is going in a second. Let's come to our stranded starfarers. Soft. What is Soft's relationship to the family? And let me ask you this. This is another thing. Your family, once again, like the Enclave, has defenses, has progress, has some solid stuff, but has a real lack in morale, leadership, and energy. Why is that?
Yeah, I think, well, lack of morale stems from just being cut off. I think, and I'm not fully fleshed this out, but something in the fall made it so that they've been cut off from the rest of the wave proper out in the skies. Maybe so there's there, and I think that's tied into their lack of energy as well. Like they've have enough to like establish themselves here in the world, but I think there's going to be an acute like energy crisis soon. Like their technologies need something to like power them. It's to power them. It's not been like, I think it's kind of like their technology has not been like retrofitted to like I don't know, this specific sun sort of energy, and so they need time to work that out. And yeah, the morale is just kind of being stranded here, and leadership is coming from, again, that whole questions about their culture. They're starting to bubble up around this time. Now that we've cut off from the wave, can we stop being what we are? And it's not infighting, but it's just like there's no one's really stepping up to like give the wave direction. And so it is a lot of like them pootling around. Sure, if someone like and Soft is certainly one of those people who think they could be that someone, if they could like give them some direction, they could make use of the waves technology and their expertise and their knowledge of the stars. Like do any of these people have any of these people even gone out of this planet? Like there are people in the wave that like have been to multiple planets, have been all over the galaxy and whatnot. So I guess that's also part of why lack of morale. There's some folks who are like, oh, this is just another planet. Why are we staying here? Why are we cultivating a space here? We should go. And so it's all terribly complicated, but like but there are some needs that are probably gonna get them to come together, like lack of energy. You're muted, Lowell.
So the threat that you have on the table is the strife endured. And last time we saw just a hint of other pockets of that appearing in other places. Certainly, they spotted some of that on the travel to the crater. You're not sure if that's a fallout from blasting the eye or something else. But what is your family doing? What are they up to? What is their plan? They have access. Of course, the basic moves when you have you have at least one fairly potent family move that you've taken. And certainly if you want to point those at an NPC faction, we can establish something like that if you want to. What do you think?
Yeah. I think at the moment, it's probably uncover lore. They want to address the energy thing. So I think it is as that move says, it's a gathering of specialists. And I think it's like and but again, because they're so decentralized, it's not that many people. I think soft is probably there, but it's like a bunch of the people who are taking care of the ships, so to speak. They've gathered around like one of the bigger ships, and I've described the waves craft are shaped after themselves. So you got some proper Mass Effect Reaper nonsense floating around floating around the Earth. And I think this gathering is like they're out of their suits because and oh man, oh crap! I have to describe what these ships look like. I'll do that later.
Okay.
I'm trying to roll this move at the moment.
So how much lore are you going to spend?
I've got one. I'll spend that.
Okay.
Feels like it's needed. Ooh, that is a 12.
What? I'm sorry, Leandro. Did you just roll a 12? Because that is not possible, as in my estimation, given how I've seen you roll before.
Yeah, Opal Ocean could have used some of those. Some of that 12. She really could have, but the dancing wave will benefit, I suppose.
That's great. So you get 2 questions or a question, and you can add something to the map.
Oh, that's tempting. Always nice to add things to the map. Well, first question is how do I remove the need of energy? For sure. And I think definitely now I'm imagining these ships. They're big. The dancing wave. They are cephalopods, so they're water aquatic based. Definitely, these ships are like liquid based in the inside, for sure.
There are some facilities located on the land that clearly have some like either have some free floating energy or have some systems that are generating energy. Destiny's Rainbow, there's a lot of energy there. It's wild and dangerous, that cloud, but there's a potential there. But more likely are either the meld down in the far southwest. It's a living lab. It clearly has energy systems there. Or the Dark Crystal up in the far northeast, which are automated catacombs. If you could potentially relocate the ships, relocate them to one of those places, and maybe figure out a way to do that, you could supply yourself with endless energy, a bounty.
Ooh. Right. Now how to best go about that. Let's see. I think well, part of why Soft's an outsider is that it's marked when your family betrays your creed. Part of she wants them to like have the wave talk to these other families. But I think they've decided we're in a vulnerable position. We have to make use of our strengths, and our strengths is to try and subvert the hell out of them.
Okay.
So let's see. You know what? We've not put the Sky Children on screen for the moment. So I think through the use of actually no, not through the heretics, but like because the creator heretics are a separate thing. But there are enough people in the wave who there's a mix. There's folks who want to reconnect to the presence, and there are probably others who want to use that connection to infiltrate the the Sky Children, so to speak. Oh, that depends if they can even if they can even do that. Like,
Well, you have a
how,
move for it, so yes, you can.
all right.
But let's get the other part of the lore here, and then we can move to you subverting these divine forces.
Yeah. Ooh, they're very tempting. What's the truth behind? I'll put a powder keg.
Okay.
Sure, let's put more threats. Why not? I think part of what this discussion sparked was that like we've had to scrap one of our ships because it is just, and we have to like scrap it to retrofit our existing ones. But the the scrapping project was faulty, and I think the ship had to be abandoned because some systems went critical. Well, they say it went critical, but like there's now like a blanket warning amongst the wave to like not go anywhere near where the ship is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So you've torn out the vitals of this living ship and left it behind, and it's a dangerous threat on the board.
yeah. And let's see what bullshit.
I'm going to
naming
have you put that
convention.
on the map. What I want to do is go to Quartz and the Sky Children, and then we'll come back to you and your subterfuge move. Does that seem like a reasonable way to handle that? Quartz, when you return to your family, what do you tell them?
I think that we see a scene, because we're all everywhere and nowhere at any one time. We manifest
Right.
when summoned. So I think probably we have a scene with an amphitheater with lots of these kind of lights, flames almost around. And Quartz is summoned there to account for his actions because he was being rebellious. The elders had determined that the Riverfolk needed to be taught a lesson by being allowed to manage on their own for a while, and yet Quartz set off to help them. And so Quartz explains that his confusion, he is confused about the heretics. They were called heretics, and yet our commandment says it is holy to protect those in need. And from what he can see, the heretics gave the Riverfolk that book for nothing. And so are they heretical, or are they in fact an example of the presence in action? And that is the question that Quartz is left with, and hands to the elders. And
do you think they answer, or they turn away in pursuit of other things?
No, I think they are going to conduct diplomacy. I think that they are going to try to find out from the Riverfolk what the Riverfolk think of these heretics and whether they may indeed be holy.
So let's look. So is that we use the call in a debt to spend a treaty to ask a question?
No, I was going to roll plus reach and ask information on opportunity or threat. Do the Riverfolk consider these heretics to be an opportunity or a threat?
Okay.
Yeah.
Then yeah, that is a way to handle that. Because one of the things is we've got call in a debt is essentially you call in your diplomatic ties, you spend the treaty, and then you could ask them that question. There's no roll required. Or you can do the conduct diplomacy and roll with reach. You got two ways to handle that.
Do you want me to do that now?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's +1 for reach. And that's a whole 5.
That is a 5.
And do the elders want to spend any No, I don't have enough treaty on the Riverfolk to improve that. So I think this demonstrates the slightly cack-handed nature of our diplomacy efforts, because I think we probably arrive in force at the work site to demand, it appears, an answer from the Riverfolk.
So what would be, let me ask David before I do my hard move here. David, what is your Riverfolk's reaction to this show of force after what you know was a problematic interaction at the crater, and suddenly the Sky Children show up at arms?
Yeah, it probably will be quite defensive. I think the Riverfolk, again, you know, I think don't have a particularly like organized military presence, so it's probably they will probably kind of initially retreat from this. I would think is how they would respond. I think, in like I said, in general, I don't think we have much quarrel with the Sky Children, but at the same time, we are aware of what they are capable of, and you know, as you say, the kind of we're still not sure exactly how they are reacting to this whole business with the heretics.
So I think the Sky Children will realize that they have perhaps overstepped, and the words that Quartz has already put in people's ears, that dissension is kind of echoing through there. I would like you to roll Hold Together for your family in the face of these revelations and this dissent.
Yeah. So mood is currently -1. So 2d -1. Is 8.
Okay, so on a hit, you mostly remain okay, and you get to pick one.
I think that another family or faction came through to help you out. I think that the seeds are on site as well, aren't they?
Yes.
I think the seeds came through to mediate that complex and far too complicated for the children interaction. So I give 1 treaty to the seeds.
That situation gets diffused. The family doesn't necessarily get answers that they want, but after a couple of weeks, that gets mediated, and they return back. Just that sort of simmer of dissatisfaction roiling beneath the surface there, which brings us back to our starfarers. Leandro, do you want to conduct subterfuge?
Yeah, let's do it. I took that move for a reason.
Okay.
Might as well use it for unfriendly reasons.
So let's look at this. When your family infiltrates another faction, roll sleight.
All right. How is my sleight? It's nothing, so should be fine. No, maybe the dice roll. No, it's not. Okay, all right. So that was an anomaly then. That 12, because now I got a 4. Amazing. All right.
So I think that this is when you will discover just how impenetrable the Sky Children's sanctuary is, right? Because that is a feature of the Sky Children's thing. And while you perhaps been able to duplicate and infiltrate out in other settlements when they've been outside, what is it that Alan, that happens when they try to do this, when they try to morph and duplicate and make their way into your abode?
I think, just to make life complicated, I mean, how hard do you want to go? Because what I was thinking about was draining the energy that was absorbed when they tried to cross the barrier was enormous and drained defenses. But is taking a surplus too heavy-handed?
I think in this case, it is, but I do think that we will establish as a fact on the board that until they do something to make a significant change in their approach, they will not be able to infiltrate your faction. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, I think because I guess they could duplicate us out there in the wilderness, couldn't they? And sow seeds of discontent. Yeah. So I think that's crashed and burned.
Yeah, and I think that you will gain one treaty on them just because they have to make up at least something to buy. Does that seem fair, Leandro?
They have so much.
The debt collector will become a calling now that we have a debt of 4.
Look, Soph had nothing to do with it.
You is my bitches.
Yeah. Well, that was an example of your family being dishonest.
Yeah, she's not happy about that at all.
Let's come back to the Riverfolk. And so what do we need to do here next? Do we need to have, establish where this book is? Do we need to go to that? Do we want to abstract that? How do you want to handle that?
So I think maybe I'm wondering actually if I think like searching out that book is probably going to be more of a long-term goal.
Okay.
I'm wondering about maybe
I'll put a suggestion out there because this is a thing that is a good fallback. Is one of the things you could do is we could establish an NPC faction that you could go and conduct diplomacy from, because that's a good way to generate data.
Yeah.
And that's a way to represent going out and searching for info.
Yeah, that's a good, that was sort of what I was thinking. I was just wondering, because I was thinking of actually maybe going back to the heretics.
Okay.
But actually, I'm wondering if maybe if I think for sake of just fleshing things out a bit more, I think I might bring in a new faction, if that's okay.
Yeah. What kind of faction is it?
So I think that this is because quite a lot of the stuff we've got on both like in terms of the families we're playing and what's out there on the board already. I think I'd like to go for something quite mundane. Mm-hmm. So I think it is possibly just like basically the biggest settlement in the region.
Okay.
And kind of it's like
a free city kind of place.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's going to be down a little bit of sort of maybe in that bend in the river just below the Eye Blinded. I'll get a little image for it in a moment.
What do you want to call it?
I think that they are called actually we'll call them the City of Glass, because I think they live in they actually live in the ruins of a former city, and they have essentially repurposed a lot of the old skyscrapers and stuff into like big hydroponic farms and stuff like that.
They figured out how to reclaim glass. They've got the technology for that. They use it. So that's like their tech thing.
And and I think they're probably not necessarily as into like the actual theoretical science side of things as the seeds are, but they have a number of good practical engineers, and I think we're possibly looking to set up some sort of training program essentially with them.
Then let's have you roll conduct diplomacy.
Yeah, certainly. I think my reach is a 0. Yes, it is. Oh, that's a 5, sadly.
That is a 5. When your people arrive to essentially conduct diplomacy and speak with them, and so on, you will discover that, and they're going to be right that sort of split below the eye blinded. Is that where they're at?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So
Okay.
I'll put them.
You will discover that they have used their technology to bridge and dam up the rivers going past that point.
Right. Yep.
And that this has been a place that your family has an access point that they've had to portage past the eye, but this is a trade route to the southeast, and they have very clearly established that they are now in control of that. And
sure
that
thing.
That if your people want to go down there, there's going to be a fee.
Right. Sure thing.
Does that seem like a reasonable fallout from that?
It does indeed. Yeah, that sounds great.
Let's come back to our enclave, the seeds. What are you doing to move this project forward, or what other ambition or goal does the family have?
Well, I was kind of looking at the requirements for that, and it seems like we have trade kind of taken care of, but one maybe silly idea I had was cashing in my treaty on the Creator Heretics, and let me know if this works. I was going to go for the surplus of barter goods, and I was going to say that Maito has been there working with them, and they had that really delicious kind of alcoholic beverage that we tried last time that I liked, and so maybe he has found a way to create like a larger distillery for them, and they're now able to
they will eventually take you into those underground caves, which are filled with these mushrooms, which are filled with these things, and other plants that blend with them, and that is what they're using to ferment and distill. They have to combine it with some other things to get it to work with the sugars, but if you call in your treaty on them, if you spend that, they'll be glad to start shipping those things to your family.
So I figure like civilization needs some alcohol to like kind of make it work and like to have a good time. And if we're going to get to that prestige and like growing this place and smoothing over those rough conversations, we're going to be needing to kind of have that there to kind of loosen things up. So
absolutely. And so what impact does that have on your people once you start getting in this? I mean, you probably had some fermentation, you probably had some hooch, some moonshine in the past, but now that you get a more steady supply, how does that change the culture?
Well, I think that I think maybe there was like maybe there's a little bit of sourness at first from some of the members who had kind of like built up their reputation as being like little craft brewers or whatever. There are different supplies of hooch, and now there's this like kind of mass market corporate thing coming in, so to speak. And so I think that I think overall, it's welcomed. I think it's something that everybody enjoys, and being able to have one of these cold, bubbly melon drinks after a hard day working on these.
Especially because rather than traveling, you're in a more sedentary place. You have the time to mix and mingle and have those interactions there. So it's definitely making some changes to the social dynamic. What 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 is this hooch like? What is it? I mean, is it like a beer? Is it like a hard cider? Is it a wine?
I was thinking like a wine cooler, but good.
Okay.
Like,
So
but
it's
like,
a paradox. Okay.
yeah, something like that. No, but I was thinking like I like the melon type flavor, but I guess for mushrooms that would be kind of weird too. So
Well, they're adding a lot of stuff to it.
yeah, I think it's like mostly like a really just refreshing melon flavor, but then I think it's like hops leaves that kind of bitter flavor in a beer, but I think the mushrooms bring in kind of like a more little earthy tone underneath.
And probably adding a little more sugar and caloric content to making it an actually, something that's actually providing the calories you need to work. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you can absolutely do that. And we'll see that trade now starting. I mean, you've got that nice direct river route to them, so that makes sense. Let's come back to our starfarers.
Yeah, they're not in a good state, are they? Yeah, I think after that failed operation against the Sky Children, there's like just even more infighting amongst the group. I think I think Soft is starting to assemble like a faction within the faction,
Mhm.
of like, because again, you break a principle, you risk ruin, and this is part of the ruin that Soft is bringing about. She might split this family apart because she's really not happy with how things are going, and there are some folks in the wave who have kind of like shifted objectives. They're like, all right, infiltration didn't work against the children, so we're not going to get to those catacombs anytime soon. Who has a surplus of energy? Maybe we can take some, and instead of infiltrating them, we should just come in and claim it by force. So there are some folks who are advocating moving against the seeds, for sure. But I think right now they gotta kind of got to hold it together,
Mhm.
because I think definitely there there's no cohesion amongst the wave at the moment. The only thing that unites them is that they come from a certain place and they're squids. That's really the only thing at the moment.
So they're torn between those things.
Yeah, Soft definitely would rather that, because well, the thing is she likes Radical.
Mhm.
They're friends. He gave her a yo-yo, and she doesn't think the seeds are bad in any way. Honestly, I don't think any of the factions. I don't think she thinks any of the player factions are that bad. The faction she probably doesn't like the most is her own. Um, she would prefer they talk to Radical and the Seeds about maybe getting some help with their energy problems. But no, there's
Sure.
some folks who wanna.
Let's have you roll hold together.
Yeah, my mood's on -1. So well, oh gosh, I'm inviting trouble on myself, but that's fine.
I know. I'm going to give you something for this. So
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. That's a 1.
that is a 1.
Wow. That's incredibly low. That's amazing.
That is amazingly low. I think that there's a war. I think that it comes to a split, like very quickly. Things come to a head, and I think you're going to have to divide your family into 2 branches, and I think we need to mark where the other ship goes to land and like settle itself in.
Ooh. I think the ship that leaves is probably Soft's group.
Okay.
They're gonna land. Actually, they're gonna land quite close to the crater. Probably around. I tried to ping it, but I'm not a roll 20.
Yeah.
So somewhere in between the Eye Blinded and the Blight, around that area.
Mm-hmm.
I love firebrands who are not fond of their families.
Yeah.
It's almost inevitable. Yeah, I think they're gonna land somewhere, probably around that bend, actually, in the river between this new capital and the Eye Blinded. Just
Can I just put something out there as a suggestion?
Yeah.
If Soft has disappeared with the true Starfarers, is it possible the ones who schismed away, they may be Starfarers, but are they now a different family, a different faction in effect?
They're a different family entirely now.
And I was just wondering if we wanted to hazard a guess as to which of the factions they might resemble.
Oh, that's an interesting question. So we've got your Starfarers, and you're going to gain need recruits for your for your family. And if we look at the family playbooks, this other group, what kind of family do you think they become? Just to give us a sense of the tone.
Yeah, let me. I'm gonna have to come back to that.
Okay.
For a moment.
Yeah.
Look through them. There shouldn't be that many there. They seem to be a bunch of pricks. So
okay. But yeah, so that is a thing that happens, is this radical change among the Starfarers. Then let's come to the Sky Children then after this Squid Civil War.
So yeah, I think that the elders are now, the confusion is general, because it is wholly to protect the needy. And yet, when we sought to intervene to protect people by finding about the heretics, we didn't seem to get the reception we expected. I think we thought we had leadership, and it turns out we don't. So I think there's a development of an idea that, well, perhaps we should just assert our leadership. And so we out there in the wilderness, we are veteran warrior monks. It's described as these cowled and hooded and masked figures, who go around doing good. And I imagine that the Sky Children are about to start making aid pay. And so we are going to take some leadership by force.
Okay. Or
by force of economic and technical advantage. Because if you look in if you look in the NPCs, you'll find that there's a lovely picture of one of them cradling an orphan human child. Well, that now comes with a tag called "You will follow our guidance," because we know best.
So, what group are you moving on to seize this? Is it one of the PC groups, or is it an NPC group? Where are you going to exert this and to show your leadership?
The logical place to look is the recently schismatic Dancing Wave, the ones that were left behind, because clearly they are confused and need the guidance of the presence.
Okay.
I'll say right now, the schism, the ones that are not with Soft,
the ones that aren't you,
the
NPC Starfarers.
Yes, they're clustered around their flagship is called the Beloved. All the stupid naming convention came up this time. Is that like the wave ships are basically adjectives that are past tense of verbs. There's an actual proper term for those, but like. Yeah, so the scrap ship is called the Mystified, and yeah, I think this group calls themselves the Beloved.
All right. So tell me what that looks like when the Sky Children go to war.
Well, go to war is a strong word.
When they impose their will.
Yes, I think it becomes a question of communities begin to notice that they no longer turn up when summoned. You know, when the water goes bad and someone needs to sort the water out, or in the case of these stranded starfarers, maybe when their energy is running low, a sky child does not turn up and simply, you know, imbue the engine or the power supply, or point them at a shard of the sanctuary that could power it. And so it's a kind of withdrawal of goodwill.
Let's have you roll grasp.
Yeah, let's try that. So that's +1.
Oh, you have a very good grasp there.
Oh, and that is 9.
That is a 9. So on a 9, you have to choose. You're going to get that leadership. You're going to impose your will on those schismatic starfarers, or non-schismatic starfarers, as they would call themselves, and other communities around to get that leadership. But choose 2 results there.
Yeah, that's the difficult bit, isn't it?
Yep.
You need to commit more assets to securing it. Tie one of your surpluses to the resource. Can I tie the leadership we just gained to the resource? Because that would seem logical. If I then lose the leadership, I lose the grip, or vice versa.
No, because what you're actually getting is the leadership. That's the surplus that you're getting.
Okay.
So you would have to tie either your safety or your justice to that.
I think justice, because up until now, we have been seen as even-handed, open-handed. And I think justice just went up in smoke.
Okay. So all you do is put a parentheses around justice.
Okay.
And then put a parentheses around leadership. And we know that leadership is no longer a need for you, but that if you lose justice, then leadership will return as a need.
And then I have to choose the second one, don't I?
Yes, you do.
I think we hurt somebody.
Who
The
gets
GM will
hurt
say who,
in
and
the
they
process?
take 2 treaty on you.
Oh, I think that this is a kind of an affront to your friend Soft's faction. Like, I think that this is definitely a demonstration of your mercilessness, this, whatever that word is, your lack of mercy.
Extreme goodwill.
You're extremely goodwill. You extremely goodwill with prejudice. So I think that the Leandro, your new divided faction will get 2 treaty on them. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, we
It
get to
does.
balance the books.
It balances the books a little.
A little.
Let's take a little break here, and we'll come back and we'll see whether we want to continue with the family moves, or we want to move forward on things, how we want to do stuff. Okay.
can I just say this wilderness is complicated?
This is less complicated than most of them, or how they get in eventually. Well, actually, one of the problems is in one of the games, I made a joke about Patrick needing to go through and get all the fonts like aligned because he had done that in one game. So to spite me, he went through and did all of them in different fonts, and it hurts my eyes to look at it now. I mean, it's fine, but it's also slightly painful. Well, what I think I might do here on this little bit before we get rolling into things when Leandro comes back is I want to take a second to kind of zoom in and see what everybody's PC is doing in the midst of this. So let's come to first Radical. Radical, a lot of what has come around is some of the changes have been based on Radical's work, and you've moved into a leader position. So what does that look like?
I think he's been, or sorry, I think they have been.
Thank you.
I think like leadership, it takes like a lot of different forms. He's not like been elected to some sort of leadership or role or something like that, but just been with all of the different working directly with the Riverfolk, and then the what's it called, the Crater Heretics, and then when the Sky Children showed up, he was kind of there for all of those negotiations, and I think there was some recognition that he's good at building those bonds, but then also making sure that logistics happen. And so I think he's been really working on kind of the day-to-day, getting camp set up, going here, talking to that people. And I think what's kind of gnawing at him right now is this morale question. And I think that kind of centers around the folks that have gone missing recently down south.
And how much was Radical involved in that negotiation, sort of diffusing the situation with the Sky Children and the Riverfolk? Was that happened away from them, or were they involved?
I think they were like one of the first people on the scenes that kind of like talked folks down and got people to just wait a minute, and then got in like the heavy negotiators to come and like bring people to the table and set up the real talks. But he wasn't there doing the actual like hardcore negotiation.
And like we've seen Radical as kind of an expedition leader. We've seen them operating. Who is their confidant? Who is their friend? I mean, do they have a parent? Do they have a sibling? Do they have a lover? Like who are they when on the day-to-day of their place?
Living in Germany, my English vocabulary has totally disappeared. So
Okay.
what is it when you're at the university and you're doing your thesis and your professor, the one you choose?
Your advisor?
Your advisor, there you go. His advisor, or their advisor, is the person that they had to work with to kind of come up with their research topic and go out into the wilderness and then come back and report on regularly. And so I think
I love the idea of a scavenger advisor, by the way.
Yeah, I think that their advisor was also previously kind of on the, kind of on the fringes of the seeds, because they also kind of had a similar lack of talent with the big tech and the magic, but then proved themselves over time, and kind of Radical goes to them often and talks about just the struggles of trying to fit in with the group. And I think lately there's been more recognition that their skills are very useful in a different way, but still kind of always feels like an outsider among them sometimes.
And I imagine that there's probably things like your advisor has you come and have dinners with his family, and then talk with you and some of the other of his disciples, students and so on, and he says to you, we stopped that fight between the Sky Children and the Riverfolk, but what do we do when we can't diffuse that? I mean, the Riverfolk are tight allies, but the Sky Children have powers that bleed into the kind of things that we're looking into.
I agree, and I've been thinking a lot about, I think from a defense standpoint, if there was aggression and something broke out, I think we could keep people out of what we're building once it's set up. But I think that we need to start thinking of not just being researchers, but I think we need to figure out who we can call upon in times of need to provide that type of aggressive support if we need it. And the one person the one creature, I'm not even sure what to call them, even though I've worked with them so much sometimes, but Soft, who I've talked to you many times about before in the past.
The one who leads the split group.
Yes. I was thinking that if we reached out to them and possibly, offered sanctuary if they need it here, or at least to support them in times of need, they may be able to provide that.
They are very different people than us.
They are different.
We have to consider the psychosociological implications of bringing in that kind of group to ours. We'd have to run the equations on that.
I'm not in favor of the equations. I don't think that they...
Fair enough. They've served us in the past, but go on.
They served us in the past, but they've also have a margin of error, as you know. And oftentimes when we're in these types of discussions, chance and just sitting down and staring at the sunset while you're drinking this melon juice is just as good as running the equations.
Fair enough. Well, you need to publish then if you are to gain a authority within. I mean, if you want to make decisions.
I've been putting pen to paper in my small times. I'm getting close. I'm just not sure who would be the person to edit it. I respect. I mean, you'll of course read it over, but I think that you and I think alike sometimes. You've been my advisor, and I think we need someone from the elders who would be a friend and not throw it out the window, but would be able to help me reword it in a way that would be amenable to the rest of the seats.
Let me speak to the committee, capital T, capital C, and I will see if I can get someone to help you.
Okay, that would be fantastic. Come up with a name for the advisor.
Oh yeah. Let's cut over to the Riverfolk and do on Meadows. We've seen your people kind of now focused. They're on the lake. Some of their trade routes have been cut off, but they're working to figure out ways to deal with the volcano. They've had this standoff with the Sky Children. So what is Do on Meadows doing? We kind of catch them on camera.
Yeah, so I think we see we see Dew on a boat, and I think that he's talking with a couple of other people, and they've got kind of some sort of charts out on the table, and there's some kind of maps with the waterways and stuff, and I think we see kind of just they're making marks and sort of corrections on where on the current state of the on the current state of the rivers, and yeah, I think that's what they're up to.
Who is the person amongst your family who gives you the hardest time for being as young as you are? Was this something you stressed earlier, is that you were the youngest of these historians and now the one who's brought back the most concrete, resource for your people and kind of driving things?
Yeah, so I think that it's my older cousin, who is she's a riverboat pilot in her own right. She pilots one of the family vessels, and her name is Waves Less Shore.
And she's practical, hands-on kind of person. So she's probably standing by while you're consulting your charts and so on. And she says, "Do you have more orders, Captain?"
I have no orders to give. Sure.
Color me surprised. People seem to jump too when you tell them what to do these days.
I can only offer guidance. That's what I'm here for. And in the case of these folk in the Glass City, I confess I'm still not sure what is the right course of action to take.
Well, you know what I said. Is, we go and we take some people and we get some dynamite and we go down there and we blow up those dams. The rivers are ours.
And I think you have some of the right of it, cousin. We do need to show that we are not weak, that we cannot be treated so poorly, but I would rather we did not start with anything quite so dramatic. I do not know. I do not know.
If we let them dam this, if we let them cut off our trade, anyone else will decide along the rivers, any other settlements will decide that they have the right to control it, and then have to be dramatic about this.
They it's said that there are old records of hidden waterways, and how our people use them in times ungone to fight against those who would, or subvert at least those who would stand against us. If we could find a way to use these tactics against them and make their defenses meaningless, that would be an even greater show of how we will not be held back. We cannot be dammed in by mere concrete.
And I think she crosses her arms in that way that like she's into this, but she's still suspicious because usually more conciliatory about these things. But so you can see that she's thinking about that, and then you kind of plant the seed of that in her mind.
Yeah. And I think I am with that going to mark my rebel role, which is when your family suffers persecution or violence. Tell us about the Forgotten Tome holding an infectious message of resistance, and the GM will tell us about the zealots it will inspire.
Yeah, I think she will. She hears about these hidden rivers. She remembers the tales that she heard early on, and you can tell that sparked something in her. The idea of riding these hidden waterways and undercutting these people who would destroy your trade routes, and certainly will. She is excited about the possibility. What's her name?
It's
Waves Last Shore.
Last Shore, yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's come to Soft.
Yeah.
What is different about the lifestyle and the existence of your people in this new place?
Yeah, I think beforehand it was very much everyone can figure out what they do because everyone in the wave knows who they are, what they're meant to be. So it's all been quite scattered. Here, it's a bit more regimented. I think Soft is trying to ensure that like there's a bit more cohesion with this group. So they're centered around their flagship, which is called the Spoken. It's beached on this river, and I think this flagship is kind of like she's kind of like working to like root it in place so they can have like one focal point, because they still got a bunch of drop ships and they got other ships about.
Right.
But like now, like the tentacles of it are kind of like rooted onto the river. It's she wants to like turn it into like a more permanent place. But I think when the camera kind of like comes to her, or at least her suit is like sitting next to the river, while kind of like around her there's like activity and whatnot of like people of the wave, just kind of like ensuring that the ship's like anchored, or like anchored, so to speak. But she's kind of slipped away. It's kind of like just sitting next to the river, and it looks like her suit, like the form she's wearing, is kind of like just staring vacantly at the water.
And who is the person that is pushed forward by the rest of your faction to come and maybe like ask you hard questions or speak hard truths?
I think it is probably one of the younger members of the wave, like someone who is quite let's see, a different kind of charismatic, someone who's young and a bit not as experienced, but it isn't like, but people put hopes on them, like they're kind of like, if Soft is like the irritating one, this one is more like someone they thought would rise well. This may be their first planet coming here, but like there I guess in terms of roles, they would have been Soft's protege.
Okay.
I suppose. So the other people in the wave think that this person who let me look at some adjectives. Their name is there's some good names. Yeah, their name is Sharp. These is they them. And I think they're wearing like a form that almost looks too perfect. It's kind of like those really creepy. There's this really creepy CG commercial recreating Audrey Hepburn. kind of like that look,
Okay.
like when you like Peter Cushing in that Rogue One movie. That kind of
uncanny valley.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they look like a movie star from the 40s recreated. Actually, they look like Audrey Hepburn. There we go.
And Sharp comes and they say, Soft, may I have a moment of your time?
I think Soft's like suit kind of like wakes up, so to speak, and they kind of like just lean back and say, "Sure, I've got time."
And Sharp enjoys wearing the suits, like enjoys taking on the personas and so on, and so has learned that people do hand gestures, and so they are always moving their hands when they talk, and they say, the orders that you've given for the ship and how we are settled in, that they are comprehensive and good, but if we follow them, it sometimes people have expressed reservations that we will be unable to launch the ship as quickly as we once were able to, that we will lack some of the mobility of the main ship.
Sharp, all we've ever been is mobile. And
we are a wave.
We are a wave, yes, but we are a wave that's come crashing against a shore at the moment. I'm not saying that we're stuck at the moment, Sharp. And I think Soft kind of like stands up and kind of like walks towards the river and says, you know, as well as anyone here amongst the wave, that any chance of us leaving, well, it's beyond our grasp at the moment. We don't have the manpower, the reserves, the energy, the everything to leave. As far as the wave is concerned, we make do, and we can't move as we once were able to. We just can't.
No one is disputing that. The approach, everyone is here because they believe in your approach on working with the things that live here. But that there's a far step from that to saying that we will be here permanently.
What do you think of that idea, Sharp? Staying here. You've not been to many places, have you?
This is my first planet.
What do you think so far?
I was raised with the promise that I would see many worlds. So this is hard for me to take in. I mean, but
Sharp, I'm not saying we're staying here permanently. Where the spoken is, where we've put up this is not a place to tie us down. I know where we are. We are a wave. We move forward. This is just a place we can come back to. It's
forgive me for having questioned you in this.
There's nothing to forgive. I know it's a weird, it's a strange idea, but I think Soft looks at like the beach form of the spoken and says like, I've been through so many worlds, so many places I could tell you about. Planets made of dust and rivers made of metal. And at some point, you move from one place to another, and they all just become blur. They just become a blur. They just become images. They just memories you might come back to. And then you move on to the next one. You move on to the next one. Here, I'd like to try something else. Not and not a place that will stay forever, but a place we can come back to. A home, you know.
I will consider this. They say they kind of move back. They're clearly not completely satisfied with what you said, but at least that's in their mind.
I think yeah, Soft's not looking at them, so I think most of what she was saying was kind of bit to herself, but like
Okay, that makes
but
sense.
like yeah.
Quartz, where are you amongst the Sky Children in this new era of goodwill from the Sky Children? Where do we see you?
I think that Quartz has determined that the Sky Children have not behaved as he believes the presence would wish. And so I would like to mark outsider.
All right.
Mark, when you forfeit your family duties to tend to the future of your fellow volunteers, tell us of the bastion of hope you retreat to. The GM will name the unexpected allies that will show up to support your cause. I think Quartz is walking into the wilderness when we see him.
And to another location, do you have people with you, or is it just yourself?
I think it may just be him, I think it's conceivable that there are other consciousnesses in the Sky Children that understand what he's doing and why he's doing it, but I think he is walking out alone.
Then I think in classic form, after 7 days and 7 nights out in the wilderness, that we'll see you out there, and you will have that feeling of the summoning, the teleportation that your family does, and you will look up and you will see Heart to Grace, the Riverfolk person from the Crater Heretics.
I was wondering about whether that might be where I would go. And I think I will find a bastion of hope among the Crater Heretics, which frankly I'd like to relabel the Crater People.
Okay. He comes and he says, "You called. And I came."
This is most unusual. You can move as we move?
I did not know I could.
This is a remarkable development. You are imbued with the presence, I think.
I would not lay claim to such a thing. We are merely the faithful.
I'm just wondering. Has he performed a holy action?
I think this is something a person outside of your people has performed something that is gifted to you by the presence. So yeah, I think so. Does that seem reasonable?
I think because that would allow me to gain one grace. I've not
Absolutely.
yet found a use for grace, but we'll worry about that at a later date. This is what this confirms is that which the Sky Children have is available to humanity. This is road to Damascus time. This is a shining light on the road to Damascus. This means that the presence is available and flows through and around all things. And of course, because we share this kind of consciousness, everybody else knows this, but I dare say it's become, something that isn't talked about. And somehow Quartz has invented this. Not that invention is a high level of skill among the Sky Children.
But yeah, he will say we should return to the crater. Come back with me.
Yes, yes, yes. I must go to the crater. I may I stay with you to learn more of what you have understood of the presence.
If you are not here to destroy us as you were before, then yes, you are welcome.
I think the Sky Children have a great deal to learn from you.
I think that's a good place to cut. Now, we've got a possibility here. We can do another set of family moves, or one of the things we could do is we could to kind of move things forward a little bit, we could cut a year or two down the road and do a turning of the age, something like that, since a lot of stuff has been put into play. Anyone have a sense of, I mean, if anyone's like, I don't want to do one or two things before we go to the turning of the age, that's cool. Any thoughts?
I have a move that is once per age.
Okay.
So I'd like the chance to activate that before we turned.
Okay. Then let's do one round on family things, and then we can see whether we want to move to the turning after that. Let's come back to the Enclave to the Seeds. What is it that you are doing in work or preparation or changes here?
Well, I was kind of in character mode for a second there.
Oh, sorry.
But to jump back out, I mean, I think kind of what they're just working on the construction of the shield and finishing that up kind of as a larger group. But I think that Radical has been speaking, and I came up with a thesis title finally, which is the problematic applications of the core algorithms due to variable interdependencies and limited data outside controlled environments. So we can get into all that if you want to, but I think what he's managed to do is put together enough of a team to go and hunt for the missing researchers down by the Warren, and I think I want to ask the Dancing Wave for help here and Soft, and so I was thinking of spending a treaty on them to help go and find that. And my hope was that by doing that, we might be able to erase our morale deficiency.
Oh, okay. That seems like a reasonable thing. So if you spend a treaty, are the others who you spend the treaty on willing to accept?
Yeah. I think the Soft's Wave, which that might be the we'll see what happens in Turning of the Age. She was partial to like she wants to maintain some good relations with Radical's group with the Seeds anyway. So yeah, the Dancing Wave will be fine with that.
Okay.
What does like help entail? So what would it look like?
What I was thinking, in well, correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
that they would roll lend aid, and then I would roll possibly claim by force to like go down and kind of, I don't know, do battle is the wrong word probably, but push back
I'm
on
good
some
with
of the.
either as claim by force or conduct diplomacy. Either one
Okay.
of those.
Because my thought here was that they were down researching the Warren, and probably this this plague of creatures is spreading, and so maybe we go down there and find a way to kind of slow it down or something.
Learn some things about them, slow it down.
Yeah.
Okay. So Leandro, you would roll your treaty with the seeds.
Okay, I have. So the one they have on me, or the one
The
I
one
have
that
on them?
you have on them.
Oh, that's three. That's amazing.
There's almost no chance you could fail.
Almost. Way to jinx it. Well, that's a 13. Where was that roll?
Okay. So you will give the seeds advantage, and even if they fail, they will not lose. You will not suffer consequences. So go ahead and roll claim by force with advantage, and then we'll kind of talk about what that looks like. That's with grasp.
Yeah. Oh, a 12. Oh, wait, -1. Or wait, was it reach or grasp?
It is grasp for claims by force.
Yeah, so -1 is an 11.
Still, so you will have to make a pick from those things. Tell me what that looks like. Like, what do we see that is able to buoy your morale? What happens? This is a skirmish. This is not a full like the destructive thing, but you're learning some things. So what do we see?
Right. I think we've asked Soft to come along because, I mean, my understanding, and Soft, jump in here and correct me if I'm wrong, but understanding is that the Dancing Wave is like can go to planets and take them over kind of aggressively. So they probably have some pretty strong weaponry that they bring along with this. But I think that what we do is we find the trail of our big vehicles kind of going down into that territory. With the help of Soft's group, we are able to fend off this swarm of creatures that come at us, and we find the encampment. And it turns out that their vehicle broke down, and so they've just been hunkered down here. Their APCs have broken down. They're, I think, borderline starvation, just barely holding on, but their defensive unit was still intact, and so they were able to survive with these creatures kind of prowling around outside. And so with Soft's group, we're able to load them up and bring them back. And through that, we actually, they were stuck here, so they've watched these creatures for like almost a month, so they have a lot of actual data on these creatures.
Yeah. Let's give you a data for that. That seems like a reasonable thing, just because I want to. And you can erase the morale need. What's going to be a pick for the claim by force? And then I have one other question for you.
Maintain control over resource. So is the resource here? I was figuring
it's the morale.
It would be morale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So do I add that as a surplus, or just erase it?
You just erase the need.
Okay, cool. Perfect. So my thought there is that we bring our people home, and we show that like we're building bridges with other groups here, and we were able to execute like this joint task force and bring them back, and it was successful. And that just people were I think just needed that extra boost to like say like we can do this. And so that's kind of what ripples through.
So of the choices under claim by force, do you think it's that you connected that morale up to something? Is it that it did cost Soft and you give treaty to them, or did doing this create a second need?
Yeah, I'll give Soft treaty, 2 more treaty on us. I think that maybe, we lost a few people, but there was one attack that kind of took out a few of their folks, maybe too.
Does that seem reasonable to you, Leandro?
Yeah, I think. Ooh, that's probably gonna be trouble. That's probably more trouble for Soft than for for the Seeds, but like, but they owe her then.
And let me ask you this: just very, very, very. What do these creatures in the warren look like? Are they multiple different types? Are they mammals? Are they insects? What are these things?
I was thinking kind of like a insect reptile hybrid, very instinct driven. I think they have excellent hearing senses, like velociraptors, but with like carapaces and stuff, and weird antenna.
Okay, so pretty nasty, but you're able to protect them, and we saw you get them out of there. Let's come to the Riverfolk. What is Duan Meadows doing in this sort of once around of family moves of pushing forward those agendas?
Yeah, certainly. So I think that Duan Meadows is going to with a small contingent of his folk is going to approach the Seed again and speak with them and try and learn more about this legendary tome of like engineering lore and any sort of leads they might have on it that might help him track it down. So I'm going to go and try a diplomacy roll again, I think, and see if it goes better than last time. Ooh, actually, I'm just going to double check.
Yeah.
Tell you what, I'm going to yeah, I'm going to hedge my bets. And I'm going to spend one of my treaty to add +2 to the roll.
Okay, that seems good.
And that's a 7, so I'm glad I did.
Okay.
So yeah, on a 7 on conduct diplomacy, I get what I want and 1 data. And one of my allies helped seal the deal, so I'll give them 1 treaty. So yeah.
So what does that negotiation look like? Pleasant?
Yeah, I think it's
board?
I think it's a fairly friendly negotiation because we're working together at the moment. So I think it's a fairly friendly discussion. I actually wonder if it's maybe less that someone else has to like step in and smooth things over, and more that they have to go out to a third party to, it's like they go, we've heard some things about it, but the people you really need to speak to are I think actually it might make sense if it is the Sky Children, and I think they maybe knew a bit more about it. And I think they have heard that there's like it's rumored that there is an old repository of knowledge in the it's the Eye Blinded, isn't it, Leandro? That was the old like communications relay type thing.
No, it was Project Sunbeam.
Project Sunbeam, sorry. So yeah, I think it's possibly that there's certainly a great cache of lore there, and and they believe that maybe this book I'm looking for in particular might be among it.
And probably you know that the people who are from the City of Glass, they've got some glass technology, so people need to be moving on that Project Sunbeam, because if the City of Glass people start moving there, that they might have some advantage. But what is the surplus that you're pretty certain, if you can get into Project Sunbeam, you can get or can build up to that?
I think it is probably a surplus of I wouldn't say actually it was probably progress. I think there's some like high tech stuff in there still.
So you will learn and begin to think about how you have to prepare in the long term to be able to get into there. Does that seem fair?
That sounds good. And once again, I get because I earned data with that move, I get to get a point of wisdom as well, and give another detail about this tome I'm looking for, which I will sort out now.
Okay. Let's come to Soft. What is your now slightly divided family up to?
Funny thing is, my initial idea was to claim Project Sunbeam by force. Because
you
that
could
is
still do that.
Yeah, because Soft's thinking is just like folks kind of need some morale, and like the Project Sunbeam is what kind of like draw them to this place. If they can take control of the building, take control of its like technology in it, they can like not reach out to the wave. I don't think Soft wants to do that at the moment, but they'd have the means to do so, to reach out to the larger wave proper, and give them like I guess a beachhead against the other dancing wave, the folks at the Beloved, and people. If people are looking for some stuff in Project Sunbeam, it'll be easier to just talk to Soft instead of having to brave whatever is in there. So
you want to lead that assault?
Yeah, claim it by force, because the Dancing Wave are good at that. That's probably what they should have been doing in the first place.
Absolutely. That's rolling with grasp.
Yeah, and would you say this is I have a need for this to at least get rid of morale, or get rid of that? Would the resource help with one of my needs? Like, I think
right now it's progress is what we have established. It's at least a portion of it. Okay. So that would be the thing. But you're looking at this in terms of morale, raising the morale of your people.
Yeah,
I think that's a fair way to read that.
Cool, because I take advantage on claim by force rolls on a resource you have a need for. So I want to clarify that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Because you could still fail.
Yeah, I still could. Yeah. All right, let's roll. Yeah, thank God for that advantage. That's a 9.
That is a 9. So to get that morale, you've got to make 2 picks on that list there.
Yeah. So I think let me go to that. I'm definitely gonna tie one of my surpluses to the resource.
Okay.
And I think it's either would be good. No, I think defenses is gonna stay with the spoken flagship. So I think I'm definitely gonna tie in progress, because if we don't have Project Sunbeam, we're not gonna be able to move forward.
So tie a project, and you can give treaty for the other one.
Let me double check. Let me come back to that tab. Yeah, I think maybe in this attack we hurt some of the Riverfolk who were like investigating that area. It's a misunderstanding. It was just
absolutely appropriate.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't mean to. I'm just saying.
What happens to them?
I think the folks that because the Riverfolk were just like investigating it. It's not like a big it's not like a big group.
No, eggs, omelets, it's all good. Go on.
Yeah, but I think definitely Soft sent like, or at least the Spoken sent quite a large group. It is just like a bunch of like floating cuttlefish dropships around the skyscraper, and I think they were there. They were ordered to like secure the place, and they saw the detachment of Riverfolk there as, intruder. Not intruders, but like it's still part of their culture.
Right.
Yeah. When
So
we
right-
say
Yeah.
I just have a question. I have a move, a family move
Mhm.
called I Will Not Abandon You. The serene won't rest until the whole world has ascended. When you zoom in with the goal of trying to save lives or redeem a profaned place, I'm just wondering, is there a possibility that the cavalry arrives to protect the Riverfolk and stop them taking any
Oh,
harm?
now that's an interesting question here. Let me take a look at how that move is written. It's really it does seem to me that it's possible, but it's really meant for like a PC, like we zoom in to the personal level with the sort of PC group thing rather than a broader move.
Okay.
Could be wrong on that.
Okay. I just think it's going to be quite difficult to activate that move.
Yeah, I need to
Because I can't see how else it works. It almost becomes an opportunity to trigger.
Yeah, it here's the thing is it doesn't seem like it's a role. It seems like it's just a thing that happens is what I'm seeing there. Does that seem right to you?
Yeah.
On a role and a choice crucial to this mission's success, which would be the mission if we zoomed in.
Yeah.
Let's what's the best way to do it? It's just always weird because we can go ahead if you want and we can zoom in on this scene if you want to go.
I suppose what I was wondering was whether there is in effect it's a we flash to the zoom in action, which is what Soft just described, with some defenseless Riverfolk at risk, and we engineer some opportunity for, say, Quartz to make a single roll, something like.
Well, what it
diffuse?
is if you're saying you're doing that, I think there's not necessarily a roll. I think we give you the grace. I mean, this is something you're narrating for that. So does that seem fair?
Okay.
And
yeah,
I think because we're compacting that, I think it's fair just to give you the grace and tell us what that looks like.
Well, I think we got a view of this last time, that the way that they protect people is they have this mantle, and they open their robes, and this light fills an area, so it's anyone they can touch. And so I think probably we see some huddling victim family, and suddenly, the glowing angel appears. And whatever fallout was about to descend upon them doesn't.
And we probably see, a couple of the crater non-heretics, assisting you on that and pulling them to safety. I think the end result after all of this is done is that Soft, your faction, has control over the location. You've gained your morale surplus, but you haven't been able to go into the place yet, or you haven't moved to do what needs to be done to explore or to gain the tech that is there. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, that seems fair. I think Soft's more interested in making things right with anyone they probably accidentally hurt.
Let's come then to the children. You have a once per age move, you said.
Yes.
What is that
Once per
move?
age, when you see the presence in another's actions, you may add a new commandment to your list, emulating their deeds. Both of you receive an immaterial surplus of your choice.
Oh.
And I'm thinking about the crater people, and I'm thinking about a commandment that says something like, it is holy to change. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And I thought that an immaterial surplus of your choice. Now, as I speak, we are in that slightly dodgy position of so
We
many.
do have a list of them on the
Yeah.
family moves page down towards the bottom.
What currently I have a need for prestige.
Yeah, this would be a great chance to eliminate that.
I think that because prestige is all about how you are perceived, and what I hadn't quite realized was how the need for prestige means that everyone's suspicious of us already.
Yes.
So we are at the forefront now. So I want to erode the one that says your family is pariahs, disdained, or beneath others' notice. So I want to scratch prestige.
Yeah.
And I'm right. Gain surplus, it gets rid of the need. Yeah,
that is correct. So it just the surplus is gone, the need is gone. It zeroes out.
And I think that I'd like to I mean, perhaps it's for you to give the crater people a surplus. But I was wondering
well,
about
they will have it as well. They've been other people have been suspicious of them.
Okay.
Both the Riverfolk and your own folk and other people, because they live in this crater. And you coming to them, there is a change in how they're perceived. They are renamed from the Crater Heretics, which is such a terrible name that they can do that. Should we do a turning of age? Let's do that. Let's walk through this process. Do we want to go forward a year, 2 years, a decade? So there's sort of two levels to this. We can go very short, which would just be a little bit down the road. We could go 5 or 10 years down the road, which means that significant things may have changed in terms of our fiction, or we can even go a generation down the road, which would mean, either your characters are very old or you make new characters kind of thing. What do you think about that, Rye? What do you want?
I would go on a little bit on the shorter side because
Okay.
I'm excited about this project I'm working on. But
Okay.
yeah.
Let's say maybe a couple years down the road. Does that sound okay, David? Does that work for you?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I was going to say, yeah, like whilst the wonder is in progress, it sort of makes a shorter jump make sense. But yeah, that sounds good.
Alan, Leandro, are you cool with that?
Yeah, I don't think distance, time matters much to the Sky Children.
Okay. So we're going to walk through that process. I'm going to grab my turning of age page book, moving the clock forward. All right. When the age turns, each of you is going to roll with your mood. And then if you roll a 10 plus, you're going to get to pick 2 fortunes and gain 2 tech. On a 7 to 9, you get a trial and a fortune and gain a tech. If you roll a 6 or less, it's 2 trials. Now, the fortunes are the only way that you get additional family moves. So I think you want to take a look at those if those are things. So, Rye, we're going to start with you. What is your morale right now? Your mood.
It says -2, but I don't know how to adjust that.
It's just up in the thing. So your mood is actually right now a +2.
+2. Okay. So there we go. Okay. Right. So my mood's +2. So you want me to roll?
Yep.
7, 9.
That is a 9. So you get to pick 1 from the trials.
Okay.
And 1 from the fortunes, and you get to mark 1 tech. I'm going to have everybody make their rolls, and then we'll come around and I'll see what everybody's choosing for that. David, what is your mood?
My mood is currently -1.
Okay, let's have you roll. You could do really well.
It's a 7.
That is all good. So 1 tech, 1 trial, and 1 fortune. Leandro, what is your mood?
It's a -1.
We saw boxcars earlier today. It can happen again.
Yeah, but this is also the mood. The mood is where I got a 1. So somehow, of course, I got a 3.
Okay, so that is 2 trials you're going to have to pick.
Oh, lovely.
And Alan, what is your mood?
After that end of age move, it got to 0,
Evened out.
which is a straight 4.
Okay, so 2 trials.
I've got my eye on one. If unless somebody wants to step in.
Oh, and people can duplicate up on these. You can certainly change the fiction around on those.
I think we saved the homeland from some great threat.
Well, I'm going to have you hold on.
Sorry.
I'm going to go around and do everybody's here. I'll give you a chance to look at those. What we're going to do is I'm going to ask you about those, and then you're going to have the opportunity to change your doctrine, lifestyle, gear, and traditions if you want. If something has happened in the couple of years that changes that, you can also make those adjustments in that. So, Rye, what are you thinking about for the trial that your family has faced?
I have just found the list and I'm skimming over them. So
sorry, there's a lot of stuff there. I'm going to skip to David, and then I'll come back to you. David, trial and a fortune.
Sure thing. I think that I am going to go for the trial. I'm going to go for. I think actually I'm going to take your family suffers persecution and violence, but it pushes them to adapt and grow, gain a new family move, but gain need revenge. And I think that this is going to be the residents of the Glass City move from from just like interfering with our stuff and actually move to outright violence and stuff against us. I think the motivation behind it is that they see us as kind of holding them back by the trade and stuff that we do. So they kind of want to like push us out so that they can kind of take
big city getting built up there. They want to interfere with this as much as possible. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think that for yeah, and I think, however, that I think that despite the fact that we are kind of fighting as a skirmish against these or possibly actually mostly defensive war against the people from the Glass City, I think that we have started to populate some of the islands and stuff around where the construction on the capital is going on. That's given us a place of safety and commerce.
Okay. Okay. And
I'll
so
go through and make...
that is nice. Let's come to Rye. Rye, what has happened with the seed?
all right. I'm going to go with something monstrous from the wasteland. Took a particular dislike to your family and has been hounding them ever since.
What is that?
Say some secret you've learned about it and gain 2 tech, but take disadvantage on family moves against it. So I think this is the Swarm of the Warren.
Okay.
They are not just a mindless beasts as we thought, but they are actually have kind of a hive mind thing going on. And when we went down there and rescued our people, we killed a bunch of them, and they were not that happy about it. And now they keep following us around and attacking us.
I like it. That is an awesome threat to have out there. And what about for fortunes?
It's either going to do the hidden vault, or I was going to go with the commerce, or the safety and commerce too, but I think I'll go with the hidden vault.
Okay.
Still intact from the world before, say what its true treasure was, and gain 2 tech from initial scavenging. Or wait, is it the one? No, the one below it, sorry. The windfall.
Okay.
Um,
3 surplus of your choice.
yeah.
That's a good one.
Trying to wrap up this capital thing. So,
Yeah.
the windfall that we found was, how on the absorbing a smaller family. That's not one of the other PC groups here, right?
No.
It'd be like an NPC faction. Okay.
It could be through scavenging. It could be a variation on the vault thing. It could be something you found in the lake, something like that. Or it could be discoveries, because again, don't forget you are scholars, so maybe it's some breakthrough in the technology based on your thesis.
Yeah, maybe we find a new algorithm that allows us to start to begin to replicate some of the living laboratory stuff from down in the meld.
Oh, I like
and
that.
we're adapting it to this new city. And so we're able to start kind of growing architecture on some of these obsidian islands, because they're basically volcanic ash and lava flows, which is pretty infertile. But we've created a new type of plant life that's growing there, and so we're be able to feed the people off of these like floating islands.
I like it, absolutely. Okay. So you'll gain that, but certainly little laziness creeps in, which given that you guys have alcohol on hand makes sense too. So
all right, I will add my 3 surpluses.
Excellent. Let's come to Leandro and to Soft's people.
Yeah, I think definitely the first one. The first trial is your family fell apart into feuding factions. I mean that technically already happened, but I think there was a smaller sort of split within Soft's group.
Well, I think this just reflects what has happened. It makes sense in the fiction.
Yeah, the eventual victors are strong and unified, but lacking refinement, gain +1 grasp and surplus leadership, but gain need culture. So does that surplus leadership, that just cancel out my need for leadership?
Yes, right? It does.
Okay, cool. So I don't, okay, cool. But do I still adjust my mood? Or
yes.
Is that, okay.
Cool. You'll adjust it for the next stage, yeah.
Okay, cool.
You essentially, it essentially takes that, so, and it'll say the same because you're picking up the need culture.
Oh yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think what that means is just like Soft has kept the group together, but she's not yet fully articulated what exactly the direction she wants. Like obviously she didn't do a good job telling that to Sharp, so I think that's kind of reflected in that she hasn't really gotten people like getting like cooperating with the other people in the wasteland. Fine, this whole no, let's have a place we can come back to. So we're not just a wave. No, she still has to work on that. So I think that's where the need for culture is.
That seems great. And then what is your other trial?
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out. Because I was my instinct was to also do something monstrous from the out of the wasteland comes out, but we already had that. So we need to add more spooky threats on the on the map. So
well, you can certainly have the threat that you've already established.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, the strife endured is it's basically a gold mine for creepy stuff coming out of it. I might do that, or ooh. I don't need to own more 3D to anyone else. I don't need to do that. I think, yeah, I'll stick with something monstrous.
Okay.
I think because of how riven the dancing wave is, they've not done what usually they do to contain such a threat. There's a standard operating procedure for that sort of thing, but they're too caught up in their own nonsense. So the strife endured.
All those cleaning and infection and decontamination procedures that were handled institutionally start to break down, and so we get expansions of that. We'll add some spots for that to the map.
Yeah, but I think definitely like things might start coming out.
Okay.
Definitely, probably, like, I'm imagining, because like this thing, this nanogelic corruption is starting to like create forms out of like whatever memories it's starting to suck up, and like weird corrupted forms. So not exactly sure what sort of creatures. I know they're like goopy black for sure, like Death Stranding, oily sort
Okay.
of mechanical creatures, like dripping in fiber optics and other gel nonsense. But yeah, I think, yeah, they do start expanding. That one spot we saw last session, it's not the only one left.
I like it. And then Alan, what about for the Sky Children for you?
Yes, I think the when Quartz went to live with the crater people, that was the start of a schism within the Sky Children. The family fell apart into feuding factions. Those on Quartz's side of the coin were happy to accept other beings into the Sky Children family. And I think some of those, certainly the crater people, but also I think some of the left behind Starfarers joined that faction. And so eventually the victors are stronger and more unified. So that obviously the Quartz faction won, but lacking refinement. So we gain one grasp and surplus leadership and a need for culture. Now I had a need for leadership tied to my surplus justice. So
did you lose justice?
No.
Okay. And your need leadership was, you're gaining that again?
Well, what I'm going to do is erase need leadership because I've gained it.
Okay.
But not at the cost of the justice that was tied to the Starfarer, the take by force. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah. And then this unified pan-being faction the Sky Children has now become, saved the homeland from some great threat, an incursion by the damned.
Okay.
At great cost to themselves, gain one reach and surplus motivation, but take need recruits.
So you lost people in the course of that.
Yeah. So I now need luxury recruits and culture. But I have safety, justice, and leadership just cancelled out the need for leadership. There you go.
Right. Do you think there are going to be any changes to your family's doctrine, their lifestyle, gear, or traditions?
Yeah, they'll probably become settled at this point.
Okay.
So I'll have to work on that.
All right.
And I'll think through the traditions.
Sure.
If I was wondering about the surpluses, if I had a need for progress, can I spend 2 of those surpluses to go from need to a surplus?
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
David, anything you think would be big changes, doctrine, lifestyle, gear, traditions?
No, I don't think so at the moment.
Okay.
No, I think we're we're carrying on.
Okay. Leandro, what about you?
I think eventually, but they're not there yet.
Okay.
I think they spent the last year just trying to hold it together. The usual thing the Dancing Wave does is try to survive. We'll see where they go from there.
And what about for the Sky Children? Are there changes to their doctrines,
Yeah,
lifestyle?
I think that we are going to stop seeking out monsters that would hurt those innocents that yet survive
Okay.
and become the keepers. You cherish those sacred things that remind you of the presence. When you find true holiness in the wasteland, ask one question about its origins, blah, blah, blah.
I like
Yeah.
it. Yeah. What we'll do at the start of next session is I'll have everybody add a new threat, faction, or opportunity to the map. That's one of the things in the process, but we'll do it at the start of next time. But I do want to ask this now. Rye, are you sticking with this character?
So that's a hard question.
It is a hard question. Now, you could move them to a new playbook if you wanted to. You could keep them there. You could new character from scratch. If you keep your character, you'll trigger a roll move. You'll move them to another roll, and you'll trigger that.
Yeah.
So let's have you think about that. Let's put this in everybody's head for next time. We'll start with that question. Does that seem cool?
Yeah.
David, everybody, we'll start out. We'll get some new things in the map. We'll check where characters are. We'll remind everybody what has happened in a couple of years, and we'll start from there next time. Sound good? Okay. Thank you all very much. This is fun. I love the changes. I love the adds to this. I love the advisor there on that. If you don't mind, I would like to take just a couple minutes to do a quick stars and wishes. Wishes being things you would like to have seen more, mechanical questions, or things you definitely want to see coming up. And then stars being things you want to point to in terms of play here. So let's do the wishes around first. Get anything on the table. I'm going to go in that same order. Rye, having played this, kind of looking forward to the next time, and any wishes off the top of your head, either things we want to do more of, less of, or things you definitely want to see next time.
I feel like I played it a little safe so far, so I think next time it would be nice to get my folks in some more trouble. They're getting idle and soft, and I think I have all the resources now to create the capital, so I'd like to get that in the rolling, and then we can destroy it or whatever.
Absolutely. Okay, good. Anything else?
No, this has been great.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. David, wishes, thoughts?
Yeah, so my first wish is a fairly easy one because it's on me, which is I am looking forward to giving somebody, I've managed to bank up a bit of wisdom now, so I'm looking forward to giving somebody a quest next time. No, other than that, I'm looking forward. It would be cool to do some. I'm interested in seeing what threats we'll have to deal with and what we zoom in on. I'm looking forward to doing a bit more. I'm also looking forward to like doing a bit of, the like you mentioned last time, sort of zooming in on like different people doing different things, potentially with maybe some quick characters or whatever around as well, and mixing things up a bit.
Yeah, there's definitely a session about setting some things up into play that we're gonna pay off now. But yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Leandro?
Yeah, my main one was seeing quick characters in action. I want to see kind of like not each faction, but like a good chunk of like the families like fleshed out with like different members and how they react to the world. That's kind of like my main one. Other than that, actually, I say my main one as if I had more, but no, I think that's my only one at the moment.
No, that's fair. Alan, wishes on your end?
Yeah, looking at the characteristics, Quartz is the nearest thing we have to an action hero in this. Bizarre as that may seem, and I would quite like to have an opportunity to use the experimental energy projector. So I want to stop talking to things, and I want them to bring them to the truth. with my terrible swift sword.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we'll definitely zoom in next time and get Quartz on the table in the middle of something conflicting. We've got these threats that have to be dealt with. We've got the City Glass. They're not good people. There's a lot of schismatic threats and general threats on the table. I think that's super fair. Rye, swing back around to you. Stars, anything you want to point to? Play, mechanics, anything at all?
Yeah, I'd give Alan a big star for Quartz and just the heart-wrenching need to understand the world and doing so poorly at it. It's brilliant. So, and then also I thought Soft and the decision to split your family was great. So that was a good
Yeah, really good choices. Really good choices. David?
Yeah, I definitely want to give a star to Rai for having literally almost exactly the same ideas that I had about setting up a city around the volcano. So props to that for the mind meld there. That was a good that was a good thing to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing our first wonder get put together. Will be good fun. I really like the wonders. I love anything with a little mini game in in stuff like this. So no, that'll be cool. Yeah, a similar style to Alan and Leandro for as I mentioned. I really like. Yeah, it's really cool. Like that's one of the things I really like about Legacy, and I think you both did it in a really nice way. And it was a little bit different in both ways, but the way that you played characters, they sort of turned on their own family a bit and dealt with the messiness of that. And I thought that was really cool to see from you. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and Lowell just as ever, excellent job. Especially, I mean, there is a lot to keep spinning with this, and I think you do a very good job of keeping everything sort of on track and come up with some good ideas to throw into the mix as well.
It is one of the most intense, challenging GM experiences. I love it, but it is intense, but whew, super fun. Leandro, stars?
Yeah, I've got a few, but the main one is probably to yourself, Lowell, for what David just said, just keeping it all together. I did love you inserting those small scenes with each PC, and they're like basically whatever foil they have in their family. I think it really helped characterize not just the PCs but the families as well. I love that scene with Quartz and I forgot their name, starts with here or something like that, but with the Crater people, Radical's advisor.
That was great.
Yeah, that's great. And I didn't expect Jude to go for the militant route, but that was fascinating. That was interesting. And yeah, I think everyone's setting off some really cool stuff to change the world, like that capital. Sounds really cool. I didn't expect again, the commitment to Quartz being like, I need to find out the truth, to the point that it does start a split in the family, which unlike my split, wasn't induced by a horrible dice roll. Shout outs to this dice roller, by the way, who, it's a different one, but bad dice rolls in an old game, they keep dogging me.
It did that thing where it gave you hope at the start, and then it turned on you.
Oh my god! But I actually don't mind it, because I'm really this direction I didn't expect, but I'm really loving it. But everyone, I'm looking at this map, and it's just so much cool stuff that everyone's putting in, and I can't wait for in a month or so we look at this map, and this map is the sane, the nice one. In a month there'll be so many symbols and squiggles, and what happened to this world.
I do want to jump on your stars there. I loved what everybody did with those personal scenes with the NPC. I thought everything you generated there was so much fun to watch. It was so good. It grounded. You all chose really interesting perspectives. It was just dynamite for me across the board. Those scenes were just amazing and super fun to run. Alan, I'm going to give you last word.
Yeah, no, I start to arrive at two things, actually. One, the flashback, the visceral flashback of being told by a supervisor, get the friggin' thing written up. And that was a whoa. But also managing, I'm going to watch this back to find out how you ended up with 6 surpluses and 3 needs. I don't know how that happened. There's some sleight of hand going on there. That's impressive.
It's great.
Leandro, yeah, I think rolling with the bad dice rolls is I think what we both share a bit today. and as always, David, really thoughtful the way that you play your characters. They're always very nuanced and then surprising. And yeah, how you keep these wheels on the cart, Lowell, I'm gobsmacked. I mean, I wish to myself is internalize the friggin' rules, because I'm endlessly, kind of up and down the rules. So yeah, it's a toughie.
Every time I run this, every session I run this, I learn something that I missed earlier. This is a game that is more of a learning process, and you just kind of go with what you've got in your head, and work from there. But yeah, I'm digging it. Yeah. Good stuff, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see everyone next week. All right. Bye.